Okay, with Greg Inglis announcing his retirement over the weekend, I thought it would be fitting to look back at his career at club and representative level and look at the amount of games he's played, the amount of tries he's scored, and all his totals, because it's kind of interesting reading, and it just shows how much of a solid, solid is an understatement, how much of a world-class player he was. He debuts in 2005, and he debuts with the Melbourne Storm. With the Melbourne Storm, obviously, he would have those two premierships stripped because of the salary cap breach, which is frustrating on a personal level for him, no doubt. But he played 118 games between 2005 and 2010 for the Melbourne Storm and scored 78 tries. And at times, he even had to kick goals for them as well. He had to do the conversions and penalties. He got 9 of them. He also did, he attempted the odd field goal every now and again and, got 3 field goals for a combined total of 333 points as a Melbourne Storm player in 5 years and 6 seasons. About going. He was at his prime in this early part of his career. Injuries would hamper him later on, as we'll get to. But for the Melbourne Storm, he was a machine. He could play at fullback. He could play in the halves. He could play in the centres. He could play on the wing. He could take over goal-kicking duties if required. He would be willing to play out of his natural fullback centre positions if required by the team. He is a team guy. He moves on to South Sydney, the Rabbitohs, in 2010. Now, he plays more games for South Sydney. He could have played a lot more, but injuries at South Sydney, especially towards the end, which we now know have contributed to his retirement, especially the last 3-4 years, have hampered the amount of games he could have played. And his try ratio is lower because he was playing injured a lot at the time, or he was playing when he wasn't fully fit. He still managed 146 games at South Sydney and still scored 71 tries, bearing in mind at times he was playing on one leg. The last couple of seasons he's missed a lot of time due to injury. So had he not been injured as much and had he stayed fitter for longer, those totals would have been far higher than at Melbourne Storm, and his game to try ratio would have been as equal, if not better, than at Melbourne Storm. Injuries have contributed to a stop-start end to his career and a lack of flow. So injuries have contributed to him retiring, and while his try ratio isn't as great to games, it's still pretty good. He also got the odd field goal in there as well. He got the odd field goal, so he had a habit of getting important points at important times for a grand total of 285 points as a South Sydney Rabbitoh. So at club level, he's an outstanding player. Over 160 games played, or 260 games played even. 149 tries and 260 games. That's not bad going, especially towards the end of his career. He's playing on one leg. That's not bad going. His representative career takes off very quickly as well. After one season at first grade, he's called up by Queensland and Australia. For Queensland, he played in 32 Origin games. He scored 18 tries. He was also captain of Queensland last season. He scored 72 points. But his games for Australia between 2006 and 2016 is where he comes into his own as a player. While he's been great at club level, he's been a star at club level, world class. He's been a great leader for Queensland in an all-star Queensland team over the last decade and a half. It's with Australia that I think he cements his place as one of the greats of all time. 39 games played, he scored 31 tries. That is his highest try per game ratio on the board, apart from his one appearance for the Prime Minister's 13, which is a pre-season match. For Australia, 124 points in total. That's 31 tries. Not many players have got that kind of game to try ratio where it's nearly a try a game. He was that good. He was that good as an international. He would have obviously had more appearances had he not had the captaincy stripped this last off season, and I covered that on a previous video, which is up on the channel when it actually happened. So his international career was shortened. He missed all of 2017 for the most part because of injury, so he would have clearly played in 2017, but injury hampered him that year. Knee injury, which has contributed to him playing less games than he would want to at South Sydney. But even so, 39 games, 31 tries. It speaks for itself. He also had 4 Indigenous All-Star appearances between 2012 and 2016 and 2 tries for the All-Stars in the All-Stars game. And that is the showstopper beginning of the season. That is the end of the pre-season. That is a pretty. I love watching the All-Star game. It is a sight to behold. In its various formats that it's had, it's been a brilliant concept. Should they play it before or after the season? That's open for debate. Should they play it during the old City Country rep round that's now gone? That's a debate we could have. But he's played 4 times. He's captained the Indigenous All-Stars and he's got 2 tries. He also had 1 appearance at the Prime Minister's 13 for 2 tries. So, as a rep player, his record speaks for itself. As a club player in the NRL, his record is outstanding. It's world class. But it's what he does for Australia that sets him apart from so many other players who can play centre, who can play fullback, who can play on the wing, who can play in the halves. What he's done with Australia sets him apart for me as one of the greatest of all time. So his overall totals as a professional at senior level is 340 professional games played since his debut in 2005, 202 tries, 9 conversions and penalties, 4 field goals or drop goals, depending on your terminology, for a grand total of 830 points that Greg Inglis has scored in his career. Well, the 830, he didn't hit 1,000 points, which, had he stayed fit, he would have done. And then he would be in the top 52 players. He's just outside the top 50 players all time for points scored, and he was a try scorer. His goal is not to be a goal kicker. It's to score tries and break the line and bring us into play. That is his role. He did that amazingly. If anyone, didn't see him at Melbourne Storm, that's when he was at the peak of his powers. He was almost unstoppable from centre. Some of the tries he scored there are highlight reel. Some of the tries he scored for South Sydney as well have been pretty good. The second half of his career at South Sydney, obviously injuries blighted his time there. It is a shame he's had to retire at the age of 32. He's not actually that old. But look at the amount of tries he's got. It's a lot. That is some pretty quality play. And to get 830 points as a non-goal kicker, because he's only kicked 9 goals and 4 field goals, to get 800 plus points, that tells you how good a strike runner and try scorer he was. I could go into his individual, merits. He obviously won the comp with South Sydney. He had 2 competitions stripped from the Melbourne Storm, so he would have won 3 premiership titles. He's got a whole host of individual accolades as well, but I thought a look at his career stats, because that is, especially with Australia, it just doesn't lie. While he was a machine for Melbourne Storm, and to be fair, for South Sydney, a machine as well, considering he was, as I say, playing on one leg at times, what he does for Australia will set him apart from so many other players. He played in a great Queensland side, but it's what he does with the national side that really sets him apart from so many other players who play his role at fullback and centre, kind of where he's predominantly played most of his career. Sets him apart. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Place your thoughts and comments below, and I will have some more videos for you very, very soon.